You're about to do these brakes on this Crown Victoria. Once again, it's as easy as you choose to make it. All you gotta do is follow the instructions and everything basically the same. Snatch those hubcaps off, then you take the lugs off. Remember I told you, you always gotta skip a lug. You can't just go in a circle. Show you a couple places you can put your jack. Would have jacked it up with one jack, but I want to show you two places. So you see that? I'm putting the jack right up under the shock. I'm gonna jack that tire up from there. On the other side, I'm putting the jack under the frame, and I'll show you that in a minute. Alright, so this jack, I'm gonna put this jack right there under the frame. So I'll let you see me slide this jack where it's going. You see that? See that? Right under the frame. You can put it anywhere on the frame. So if you want to save money, invest in the jack. Anybody can buy a jack. Before you jack your car up, always make sure you chalk your wheels. Chalking the wheels means you put something behind them so the car don't roll. The car can roll a little bit while you got it jacked up and kill you. Remember I told you to go in the star pattern, not a circle, when you're taking your lugs off. See how you skip one every other time? This is to keep from warping your rotor. When you go in the circle, you run the risk of warping your rotor. So put your tire under the car for extra support, especially if you ain't got no jack stands. Always use your jack stand, place that under the frame. They cheap, you can buy them too. So we're gonna check the brake pad to see if we actually want to do the brakes. It's not acting up, we just want to make sure that it ain't gonna be going out in the next few months when it's freezing cold around these parts. So all you need to do is take that bottom bolt out, and you should be able to flip the pad up if we got enough brake hose that's loose enough for us to do it. But we also have to use a screwdriver to loosen up the caliper too, but we'll show you that. Y'all see that? Just like magic. Now we can look and see what the pads look like. They're pretty low, so we're gonna replace them. Y'all see that top one? How it's worn even a little bit, and it's kind of thin. See that top where it's kind of thin and it's a little thicker at the bottom? So that means the caliper was wearing a little funny, so we're gonna grease that up real good, and we're gonna replace these because we're here and they're gonna be messed up pretty soon anyway. But guess what? You're halfway finished with this side, because all you gotta do is pop those out, but you gotta make sure you grease up everything. See that? You took out one bolt and you halfway done doing your brakes. So now what we're gonna do is grease all the contact points. See how you can push that off, and you can sit that on top of there, and then you go get your grease and grease up everything. So make sure you get you some real brake grease. See that? That's Seal Glad. That's real brake grease, not just any old oil. And you gotta grease up all the contact points. You know, first you grease your pins in case you run out of grease. That's a joke. So you grease your pins. Don't stick the grease inside where the pins go, because then you'll wonder why you can't get the caliper on some cars. And that's because the grease be down in that housing, and you can't push the caliper all the way on until you keep going back and forth and some of that grease squeeze out. So now right now he's greasing the pistons. You put that grease on all those contact points so your brakes won't squeak, and so that they move freely and don't freeze up. And so you want to make sure that when you grease all of these, that you put a nice amount of grease on your piston boots too. That'll make sure that the boots don't get cracked up and that they stay moving around. And that's why you got to use the proper grease, because you can use the incorrect grease and those boots will get swollen and messed up, and you have to replace your caliper. So you can pull that pin out. That's the pin that you took the bolt out of. So you want to grease that pin up to see how clean that pin is. If that pin got corrosion on it or it's hard to get out, you should buy a new one. But if you don't want to buy a new one, then you need to clean it off with a grinder or something and then grease it. And remember I said, don't stick the grease in the pin hole. Put the grease on the pin, because you're going to stick that back in there and you won't be able to get it all the way back in, and you'll be wondering why your caliper bolts won't line up, and it's because you can't get that all the way back in. And so now we're greasing where the brake pads sit on that brake hardware. So there's several ways to push a piston back. These are my little makeshift ways. One is a C-clamp. One is a channel lock. One is a oil filter wrench. Which is my favorite? The one that's most wrong, the oil filter wrench. But they got tools at the parts store if you want to buy them, but I'm letting you know you don't have to buy those to push that piston back.
Take two.
So make sure your hose is not kinked up or rolled up. Put the pads on there and then just squeeze it and it should go back. You see that? Just like magic. So now when you take it off, I just want you to see that it got to be flush. It's not sticking out at all. So when you put them new pads on there, if that's sticking out, you're not going to be able to put it on the rotor. So open your new box up. Get ready to slap these boys on. Nice and quick. Check them out, see if all four of them look the same. If all four of them made the same and you ain't got no sensors on them, you can just start slapping them on. If they different, you gotta check to see which ones go on the inside, which ones go on the outside. Some cars you might even have left and right. That's rare, but it can happen. So you just slide them back in the slots where you took them out of. These little notches on them, so it only go one way. You see that? It only go one way. See, we can try this way and it won't work. So then we have to flip it over and see the notches on the top, and they go right in. Same way you make a baby. It only work one way. Slide that pin back in the top. Make sure your cable don't have any kinks in it. It should be nice and smooth. No twists and turns. See that? Now it's nice and loose. Now we just slide that top pin back in. Where it came from. Slide the piston down over the brake pads, making sure we don't snatch the shims off the pads. Sometime if it don't go back on, you might have to squeeze the pistons back some more, because they might be done slid out because you waited a little while or you pushed the other side. Them should go on there. Gotta straighten out that back pad. It's gonna be tight. It's supposed to be tight. You got new pads on there. So it got a little notches on the pads too, so once it slides back, you'll see it go on there. But you see that right there? So you got your shoe on, then it might hit that sometime, and you're thinking you can't get it on. You just gotta play around with that so it'll go down the right way. See that? See that? Now it's flush. You get your screw your screw in there, and you're done with this side. You go to the other side and do the same thing. Then you get in your car and you turn the key so the lights come on the dash, but don't start it. Push your brake 25 times so that the brake fluid that you push back through the line can get out the modulator before you push the brakes and put all that pressure on your anti-lock brake system. Save your money. It's the BLONG Show.